The National FAA Safety Team presents Aerobatic Practice Areas. This presentation brought to you by Brian Stamper, Lee Unger, and myself, Sarah Nilsson. We begin the presentation with a small snippet of a video to remind us about the thrill of aerobatic flight. This presentation is based on a paper written by Jim Ward entitled An Overview of Aerobatic Practice Areas. Jim is a longtime pilot, flight instructor, competitor, and APA user. The views expressed in this presentation are his. Once again, this video is brought to you by Brian, Lee, and myself. Among the US pilot community, aerobatic practice areas, known as APAs, are perhaps the least known of the FAA-designated miscellaneous activity areas within the NAS. Other types, like parachute jumping areas and glider operating areas, are more well-known and more frequently charted. Jim's paper introduces APAs to you, the purpose and how the FAA disseminates information about them to pilots. Jim advocates for improving pilot awareness of this airspace in order to step up safety for both APA users and non-participants alike. Federal regulations permit aerobatic flight in most Class Echo and Golf airspace above 1,500 feet. All altitudes are AGL except those within chart supplement excerpts where MSL is used unless noted. That's a sufficient floor for most aerobatically inclined pilots. However, airshow pilots, for example, practice and are tested at the minimum altitudes they'll fly in their performances. Developing and maintaining the sight picture at such low altitudes is essential for flying safely. Aerobatic competition pilots are similarly situated. Rules for sanctioned competitions permit maneuvering at heights as low as 320 feet. Pilots flying aerobatics at these altitudes, or under other conditions prohibited by the FAAS, operate under the terms of an FAA waiver. Airspace used under such a waiver is an aerobatic practice area, an APA. Aerobatic competition boxes are distinct from APAs and omitted from this paper. Competition boxes are temporary and require issuance of a Class 1 NOTAM. During use, conflicts by non-participants are rare, monitored by multiple ground personnel, and readily resolved. Dozens of aerobatic practice areas are established throughout the United States. Each APA is situated at a fixed location and bounded laterally and vertically. APAs vary in shape and height. The lateral bounds of some form a circle, others a rectangle, and a handful irregular polygons. Low height limits range from the surface to 1,500 feet. High limits often run to 5,000 feet. Practice areas used by jets have higher upper limits. Several considerations factor into APA placement. Safety for people and objects on the surface, as well as users, is paramount. Topography and noise figure prominently too. Subtler factors include having an underlying surveyed and/or marked competition box, the presence of natural surface features or man-made objects to identify boundaries meaningful to users, proximity to an airport to accommodate unexpected situations requiring a safe, speedy return, surface accessibility by vehicle for ground observers, and distance from federal airways. APA users remain responsible to see and avoid traffic, like all other operators in visual meteorological conditions. FAA waivers often impose further obligations on users, such as requirements for weather minima in excess of basic VFR, regularly scanning the area for conflicting traffic, and monitoring, announcing on CTAF if an airport is nearby. Most APAs are adjacent to airports or a short distance away. While they don't influence runway safety per se, they do affect pattern safety and warrant non-participating pilots' attention. A few cases here illustrate why. At Marana, Arizona, the APA is a 1 kilometer per side square, centered about 2 miles south-southeast of the runway 30 numbers. It overlies a surveyed permanently marked competition box. Anyone departing through the prominent quarry south of the airport flies through the APA. Pilots mistakenly flying left traffic for runway 30 could also traverse the APA. The Coolidge, Arizona APA lies over airport property east of runways 17 and 35. Underneath is a competition box presently unmarked. Arrivals via a crosswind for runway 5 fly through the APA, as do departures off any runway making an early turn east over the airport. The Ephrata, Washington APA and marked competition box lies overhead the airport. Here, the traffic pattern is moved to the west and south sides of the field for all runways when the APA box is in use. Transiting pilots occasionally fly through off CTAF frequency en route to or from the nearby VOR. Now and then, landing pilots accustomed to east side traffic for runways 3, 11, and 21 join the 45 before making a radio call and learning the APA is active. Vigilance by APA users is essential to safety. At airports like these, participants announce their APA usage on CTAF, then monitor the frequency and scan for traffic while maneuvering. If present, ground observers, usually other pilots serving in a coaching or critiquing role, also look for traffic. They report conflicts to the pilot by radio. APA traffic conflicts requiring a resolving action by one or both pilots are common, collisions are not. Deconfliction usually involves the APA user returning to straight and level flight, a radio conversation, and either a course change by the non-participant or other avoidance maneuvering by one or both pilots. When an experienced ground observer is present, he or she can point out each aircraft to the other to facilitate resolution. A missing link in the APA safety equation is the non-participating pilot. Though APA locations and altitudes are available to every NAS user, they're difficult to find, interpret, and apply. Equipping non-participants with readily accessible APA locations and altitudes would increase awareness, vigilance, and safety. A summary of current dissemination methods by the FAA. First off, where they're not visible. APAs are not depicted on EFB or sectional charts. Due to their long-term duration, APAs don't qualify for issuance as Class 1 NOTAMs, meaning pilots checking NOTAMs with an electronic provider or FSS won't learn about them. APAs aren't mentioned in pilot training syllabi or on any FAA knowledge exam. It's reasonable to infer that most pilots are unaware of their existence. Where they are. APAs do appear in the Special Notices section of U.S. chart supplements. Mentions of them also appear irregularly commingled with other data in nearby airports' remarks sections. Here's an example from Marana, for example. APA descriptions in U.S. chart supplements special notices have no uniform template. Many appear in a list of the center points fix, radial distance, size, and altitude limits. Shape is implied. Here's an example from the Aerobatic operations in Arizona. The following special notice for the 2 Aerobatic Practice Areas at Santa Paula, California, models how best to present APAs in soft or hard copy print. The chart snippet you're about to see, together with a textual description, provides the reader with instantly useful information. Other special notices, such as this one for the Marana APA, leave the reader without an immediate sense of the APA's location relative to pertinent landmarks. Such obscurity and inconsistency challenge pilots to understand if a flight may transit through or near an APA. The FAA has designated a distinct chart symbol to mark APAs on VFR charts, terminal area charts, and VFR flyway charts. You have seen it now 20 times on the upper right-hand corner of these slides. Just prior to this recording, however, Jim checked for the symbol for several APAs situated in New Hampshire, Arizona, and Southern California. None were charted as yet with this symbol. We end this presentation with a call to action. An opportunity to improve APA safety exists right now by making it easier for non-participating pilots to know about and identify APAs. The effect? Greater awareness yields greater vigilance, fewer conflicts between participating and non-participating aircraft, and a safer environment for all. To seed the conversation, here are a few means of exposing APAs that publishers, regulators, and other stakeholders might consider should the value of increasing APA safety resonate. First off, deploy this APA visual chart symbol at all APA locations. Create map data for popular EFBs that show APA boundaries and altitude limits, like what some EFB providers currently publish for parachute jumping areas. Establish and apply a uniform template, including a chart snippet to describe APAs in US chart supplements. And lastly, tweak teaching and recency curricula to include an equivalent level of content for APAs as is done for other types of miscellaneous activity areas. Each item relies on existing methods and tools. No reinventing the wheel is required. Adopting then adjusting today's model for identifying parachute jumping areas may offer the most streamlined path. On behalf of my colleagues, Brian and Lee, I'd like to thank you for watching this presentation and give a huge thanks to Jim Ward for his paper. You've been watching Aerobatic Practice Areas, brought to you by the FAA Safety Team.